I have done 30 plus certifications and am here to guide you throughout your certification journey. In this video, we will be covering some important questions related to the SAP C02 exam. You can find the complete PDF of this video and our practice questions through the link down in the description. To the important questions, question 1. Company is deploying a new application on AWS. The application consists of an Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service cluster and an Amazon Elastic Container Registry repository. The EKS cluster has an AWS managed node group. The company's security guidelines state that all resources on AWS must be continuously scanned for security vulnerabilities. Which solution will meet this requirement with the least operational overhead? Here in this question, we want that all resources on AWS are continuously scanned for security vulnerabilities. The solution that will meet this requirement with the least operational overhead is to activate Amazon Inspector to scan the EKS nodes and the ECR repository. Thus, the correct option is B. You can use Amazon Inspector to check for unintended network accessibility of your nodes and for vulnerabilities on those Amazon EC2 instances. Question 2. Company has an on-premises data center and is using Kubernetes to develop a new solution on AWS. The company uses Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service clusters for its development and test environments. The EKS control plane and data plane for production workloads must reside on premises. The company needs an AWS managed solution for Kubernetes management. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Question 2. The company has an on-premises data center and is using Kubernetes to develop a new solution on AWS. The company uses Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service clusters for its development and test environments. The EKS control plane and data plane for production workloads must reside on premises. The company needs an AWS managed solution for Kubernetes management. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Here in this question, the company wants the EKS control plane and data plane for production workloads to reside on premises. The company needs an AWS managed solution for Kubernetes management. The solution that will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead is to install an AWS Outposts server in the on premises data center. Deploy Amazon EKS by using a local cluster configuration on the Outposts server for the production workloads. Thus, the correct option is A. The correct answer is A. When deploying EKS on an Outpost server in a local cluster configuration, the control plane and data plane reside on premises, but the control plane is AWS managed. Question 3. Company is using multiple AWS accounts and has multiple DevOps teams running production and non production workloads in these accounts. The company would like to centrally restrict access to some of the AWS services that the DevOps team do not use. The company decided to use AWS organizations and successfully invited all AWS accounts into the organization. They would like to allow access to services that are currently in use and deny a few specific services. Also, they would like to administer multiple accounts together as a single unit. What combination of steps should the solutions architect take to satisfy these requirements? Here in this question, the company would like to centrally restrict access to some of the AWS services that the DevOps team do not use. They would like to allow access to services that are currently in use and deny a few specific services. Also, they would like to administer multiple accounts together as a single unit. Considering this, the combination of steps that the solutions architect should take to satisfy these requirements is to use a deny list strategy, review the access advisor in AWS IAM to determine services recently used, and define organizational units and place the member accounts in the OUs. Thus, the correct options are A, B, and E. About the options, A. This approach involves explicitly denying access to specific AWS services that the company wants to restrict. It allows all other services to be accessible, which aligns with the company's requirement to allow services that are currently in use. About B, AWS IAM Access Advisor shows the service permissions granted to a user and when those services were last accessed. This information is valuable to understand which AWS services are actively used and which are not, helping to make informed decisions about which services to restrict. About E, organizational units allow for grouping AWS accounts that have similar needs or requirements. This structure enables the solutions architect to apply policies at the OU level, making it easier to manage permissions and restrictions across multiple accounts. Question 4. A large payroll company recently merged with a small staffing company. The unified company now has multiple business units, each with its own existing AWS account. A solutions architect must ensure that the company can centrally manage the billing and access policies for all the AWS accounts. The solutions architect configures AWS organizations by sending an invitation to all member accounts of the company from a centralized management account. What should the solutions architect do next to meet these requirements? Here in this question, the solutions architect must ensure that the company can centrally manage the billing and access policies for all the AWS accounts. The solutions architect has sent an invitation to all member accounts of the company from a centralized management account. Considering this, the next step should be to create the organization account access role IAM role in each member account, grant permission to the management account to assume the IAM role. Thus, the correct option is C. C is the answer. This setup enables centralized management of member accounts from the management account. Administrators in the management account can assume the organization account access role in member accounts to perform necessary actions aligning with AWS best practices for organizations. It simplifies the management and auditing of various accounts and ensures a standardized role exists across all accounts for consistent access control. Question 5. The solutions architect has launched multiple Amazon EC2 instances in a placement group within a single availability zone. Because of additional load on the system, the solutions architect attempts to add new instances to the placement group. However, the solutions architect receives an insufficient capacity error. What should the solutions architect do to troubleshoot this issue? Here in this question, in order to troubleshoot this issue, the solutions architect should stop and start all the instances in the placement group and then try the launch again. Thus, the correct option is B. If you try to add more instances to the placement group later, or if you try to launch more than one instance type in the placement group, you increase your chances of getting an insufficient capacity error. If you stop an instance in a placement group and then start it again, it still runs in the placement group. However, the start fails if there is not enough capacity for the instance. If you receive a capacity error when launching an instance in a placement group that already has running instances, stop and start all of the instances in the placement group and try the launch again. Starting the instances may migrate them to hardware that has capacity for all of the requested instances. Question 6. The company runs applications in hundreds of production AWS accounts. The company uses AWS organizations with all features enabled and has a centralized backup operation that uses AWS backup. The company is concerned about ransomware attacks. To address this concern, the company has created a new policy that all backups must be resilient to breaches of privileged user credentials in any production account. Which combination of steps will meet this new requirement? Here in this question, the company wants that all backups must be resilient to breaches of privileged user credentials in any production account. Considering this, the combination of steps that will meet this new requirement is to implement cross account backup with AWS backup vaults in designated non production accounts, implement AWS backup vault lock in compliance mode, and configure the backup frequency, lifecycle, and retention period to ensure that at least one backup always exists in the cold tier. Thus, the correct options are A, C, and D. ACD for sure. A. This will allow the company to securely copy their backups to other accounts that are part of their organization for operational or security reasons. C. This will provide an additional layer of protection and immutability to the backup vaults, preventing any user or AWS from deleting or modifying the backups until the retention period is complete. D. This will help the company to avoid accidental or malicious deletion of backups by enforcing a minimum retention period and moving the backups to a lower cost storage tier 2. Question 7. Company processes environmental data. The company has set up sensors to provide a continuous stream of data from different areas in a city. The data is available in JSON format. The company wants to use an AWS solution to send the data to a database that does not require fixed schemas for storage. The data must be sent in real time. Which solution will meet these requirements? Here in this question, the company wants to use an AWS solution to send the data to a database that does not require fixed schemas for storage in real time. Considering this requirement, we should use Amazon Kinesis data streams to send the data to Amazon DynamoDB. Thus, the correct option is B. Question 8. Company's compliance audit reveals that some Amazon Elastic Block Store volumes that were created in an AWS account were not encrypted. A solutions architect must implement a solution to encrypt all new EBS volumes at rest. Which solution will meet this requirement with the least effort? Here in this question, the solutions architect must implement a solution to encrypt all new EBS volumes at rest with the least effort. This can be done by turning on EBS encryption by default in all AWS regions. Thus, the correct option is D. Question 9. An online retail company hosts its stateful web based application and MySQL database in an on premises data center on a single server. The company wants to increase its customer base by conducting more marketing campaigns and promotions. In preparation, the company wants to migrate its application and database to AWS to increase the reliability of its architecture. Which solution should provide the highest level of reliability? Here in this question, the company wants to increase its customer base by conducting more marketing campaigns and promotions, and in preparation, wants to migrate its application and database to AWS to increase the reliability of its architecture. The solution that should provide the highest level of reliability: migrate the database to Amazon Aurora MySQL. Deploy the application in an auto-scaling group on Amazon EC2 instances behind an application load balancer. Store sessions in an Amazon Elasticache for Redis replication group. Thus, the correct option is B. Amazon Aurora provides built-in security, continuous backups, serverless compute to 15 read replicas, automated multi-region replication, and integrations with other AWS services. Redis supports replication. When adding both solutions, B seems the correct answer. Question 10. A company runs its application on Amazon EC2 instances and AWS Lambda function. The EC2 instances experience a continuous and stable load. The Lambda functions experience a varied and unpredictable load. The application includes a caching layer that uses an Amazon memory DB for Redis cluster. Solutions architect must recommend a solution to minimize the company's overall monthly costs. Which solution will meet these requirements? Here in this question, our requirement is to minimize the company's overall monthly costs. This can be done by purchasing an EC2 instance savings plan to cover the EC2 instances, purchase a compute savings plan for Lambda to cover the minimum expected consumption of the Lambda functions, purchase reserved nodes to cover the memory DB cache nodes. Thus, the correct option is A. Reserved concurrency for Lambda won't reduce costs, and Lambda will benefit from compute savings plan. Question 11. A company is using AWS organizations with a multi-account architecture. The company's current security configuration for the account architecture includes SCPs, resource-based policies, identity-based policies, trust policies, and session policies. Our solutions architect needs to allow an IAM user in account A to assume a role in account B. Which combination of steps must the solutions architect take to meet this requirement? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to allow an IAM user in account A to assume a role in account B. This can be done by configuring the identity based policy on the user in account A to allow the action, configuring the trust policy on the target role in account B to allow the action, and configuring the session policy to allow the action and to be passed programmatically by the get session token API operation. Thus, the correct options are C, E, and F. Question 12. A data analytics company has an Amazon Redshift cluster that consists of several reserved nodes. The cluster is experiencing unexpected bursts of usage because a team of employees is compiling a deep audit analysis report. The queries to generate the report are complex read queries and are CPU intensive. Business requirements dictate that the cluster must be able to service read and write queries at all times. A solutions architect must devise a solution that accommodates the bursts of usage. Which solution meets these requirements most cost effectively? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to devise a solution that accommodates the bursts of usage most cost effectively. Considering this, the solutions architect should turn on concurrency scaling feature for the Amazon Redshift cluster. Thus, the correct option is D. The most cost effective solution for addressing bursts of usage and accommodating complex queries in Amazon Redshift is to turn on the concurrency scaling feature for the Amazon Redshift cluster. Question 13. Solutions architect must update an application environment within AWS Elastic Beanstalk using a blue/green deployment methodology. The solutions architect creates an environment that is identical to the existing application environment and deploys the application to the new environment. What should be done next to complete the update? Here in this question, in order to complete the update, the solutions architect should select the swap environment URLs option. Thus, the correct option is B. AWS Elastic Beanstalk provides a swap environment URLs option for performing a blue/green deployment. This operation swaps the CNAME records of two environments, thus rerouting traffic from the original environment to the new environment. Question 14. A company manages hundreds of AWS accounts centrally in an organization in AWS organizations. The company recently started to allow product teams to create and manage their own S3 access points in their accounts. The S3 access points can be accessed only within VPCs, not on the internet. What is the most operationally efficient way to enforce this requirement? Here in this question, our requirement is that the S3 access points should only be accessed within VPCs and not on the internet. As such, the most operationally efficient way to enforce this requirement is to create an SCP at the root level in the organization to deny the S3 column create access point action unless the S3 column access point network origin condition key evaluates to VPC. Thus, the correct option is B. SCP is a type of policy that you can use to manage permissions in your organization, allowing you to control AWS service actions across multiple AWS accounts. By creating the SCP at the root level, you ensure that all accounts within the organization are subjected to this policy. This is an efficient way to enforce the requirement across all accounts as it requires a single policy change instead of individual changes in every account. Question 15. A company hosts a blog post application on AWS using Amazon API Gateway, Amazon DynamoDB, and AWS Lambda. The application currently does not use API keys to authorize requests. The API model is as follows: get slash posts slash post ID column to get post details, get slash users slash user ID column to get user details, get slash comment ID column to get comments details. The company has noticed users are actively discussing topics in the comments section, and the company wants to increase user engagement by making the comments appear in real time. Which design should be used to reduce comment latency and improve user experience? Here in this question, the company wants to increase user engagement by making the comments appear in real time. They want to reduce comment latency and improve user experience. Considering this, the company should use AWS App Sync and leverage WebSockets to deliver comments. Thus, the correct option is C. AWS App Sync is a managed service that uses GraphQL to make it easy for applications to get exactly the data they need. With AppSync, you can build scalable applications, including those requiring real time updates on a range of data sources such as NoSQL data stores, relational databases, HTTP APIs, and your custom data sources with AWS Lambda. Question 16. A company wants to send data from its on premises systems to Amazon S3 buckets. The company created the S3 buckets in three different accounts. The company must send the data privately without the data traveling across the internet. The company has no existing dedicated connectivity to AWS. Which combination of steps should a solution architect take to meet these requirements? Here in this question, the company must send the data privately without the data traveling across the internet. Also, the company has no existing dedicated connectivity to AWS. Considering this, the solutions architect should establish a networking account in the AWS cloud, create a private VPC in the networking account, set up an AWS Direct Connect connection with a private VIF between the on premises environment and the private VPC, and create an Amazon S3 interface endpoint in the networking account. As such, the correct options are A and B. AB, DX plus interface endpoint. Both gateway and interface endpoints will use AWS backbone, so not internet. However, you cannot access a gateway endpoint from on premises. Therefore, it needs interface endpoints. You can use two types of VPC endpoints to access Amazon S3: gateway endpoints and interface endpoints. Gateway endpoint is a gateway that you specify in your route table to access Amazon S3 from your VPC over the AWS network. Interface endpoints extend the functionality of gateway endpoints by using private IP addresses to route requests to Amazon S3 from within your VPC on premises or from a VPC in another AWS region by using VPC peering or AWS Transit Gateway. Question 17. Company is collecting a large amount of data from a fleet of IoT devices. Data is stored as optimized row columnar files in the Hadoop distributed file system on a persistent Amazon EMR cluster. The company's data analytics team queries the data by using SQL and Apache Presto deployed on the same EMR cluster. Queries scan large amounts of data, always run for less than 15 minutes, and run only between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. The company is concerned about the high cost associated with the current solution. The solution's architect must propose the most cost effective solution that will allow SQL data queries. Which solution will meet these requirements? Here in this question, the company needs the most cost effective solution that will allow SQL data queries. Considering this, the solutions architect should store data in Amazon S3, use the AWS Glue Data Catalog and Amazon Athena to query data. Thus, the correct option is B. Storing the data in Amazon S3 is a cost effective solution compared to running a persistent EMR cluster with HDFS. The AWS Glue Data Catalog provides a centralized metadata repository for organizing and cataloging data in S3. Amazon Athena is a serverless query service that allows you to run SQL queries directly against data in S3 without the need for a dedicated cluster or infrastructure. By using Amazon Athena, you only pay for the queries you run, which aligns with the requirement of cost effectiveness. Question 18. Company uses AWS CloudFormation to deploy applications within multiple VPCs that are all attached to a transit gateway. Each VPC that sends traffic to the public internet must send the traffic through a shared services VPC. Each subnet within a VPC uses the default VPC route table and the traffic is routed to the transit gateway. The transit gateway uses its default route table for any VPC attachment. Security audit reveals that an Amazon EC2 instance that is deployed within a VPC can communicate with an EC2 instance that is deployed in any of the company's other VPCs. A solutions architect needs to limit the traffic between the VPCs. Each VPC must be able to communicate only with a predefined limited set of authorized VPCs. What should the solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to limit the traffic between the VPCs. Each VPC must be able to communicate only with a predefined limited set of authorized VPCs. Considering this, the solutions architect should create a dedicated transit gateway route table for each VPC attachment. Route traffic only to the authorized VPCs. Thus, the correct option is C. C is correct. Option C suggests creating a dedicated transit gateway route table for each VPC attachment. This allows fine-grained control over the routing of traffic between VPCs. By creating separate route tables, the architect can specify the allowed routes for each VPC attachment and limit traffic to only the authorized VPCs. This approach ensures that communication between VPCs is restricted and provides a secure and controlled network environment. Question 19. Company has implemented an ordering system using an event-driven architecture. During initial testing, the system stopped processing orders. Further log analysis revealed that one order message in an Amazon simple queue service standard queue was causing an error on the backend and blocking all subsequent order messages. The visibility timeout of the queue is set to 30 seconds and the backend processing timeout is set to 10 seconds. The solutions architect needs to analyze faulty order messages and ensure that the system continues to process subsequent messages. Which step should the solutions architect take to meet these requirements? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to analyze faulty order messages and ensure that the system continues to process subsequent messages. Considering this, the solutions architect should configure a new SQS standard queue as a dead letter queue to isolate the faulty messages. Thus, the correct option is D. Amazon Simple Queue service allows you to set up dead letter queues to isolate messages that cannot be processed correctly. This option is useful when you want to set aside and isolate messages that cannot be processed successfully to examine them later. When using standard queues, the DLQ should also be a standard queue. Question 20. Company has an application that generates reports and stores them in an Amazon S3 bucket. When a user accesses their report, the application generates a signed URL to allow the user to download the report. The company's security team has discovered that the files are public and that anyone can download them without authentication. The company has suspended the generation of new reports until a problem is resolved. Which set of actions will immediately remediate the security issue without impacting the application's normal workflow? Here in this question, the company's security team discovered that the files are public and that anyone can download them without authentication. The set of action that will immediately remediate the security issue without impacting the application's normal workflow is to use the block public access feature in Amazon S3 to set the ignore public ACIS option to true on the bucket. Thus, the correct option is D. Amazon S3 block public access provides settings for access points, buckets, and accounts to help you manage public access to Amazon S3 resources. By default, new buckets, access points, and objects don't allow public access, but users or applications can modify bucket policies or object permissions to allow public access. S3 block public access settings override these public access settings. You can use S3 block public access to block existing public access, whether specified by an ACL or a policy, and to ensure that public access isn't granted to newly created items. Using signed URLs to grant temporary access to the S3 objects is a secure way to share files. It allows the company to continue using their current workflow without affecting its users while also maintaining the privacy and security of the files in the bucket. Question 21. Company is using AWS organizations to manage multiple accounts. Due to regulatory requirements, the company wants to restrict specific member accounts to certain AWS regions where they are permitted to deploy resources. The resources in the accounts must be tagged, enforced based on a group standard, and centrally managed with minimal configuration. What should a solutions architect do to meet these requirements? Here in this question, The resources in the accounts need to be tagged, enforced based on a group standard, and centrally managed with minimal configuration. Considering this, the solutions architect should associate the specific member accounts with a new OU, apply a tag policy and an SCP using conditions to limit regions. Thus, the correct option is D. D will only apply to the specific account in the new OU, while C will apply SCP to the whole accounts with the organization. Question 22. Company is expanding. The company plans to separate its resources into hundreds of different AWS accounts in multiple AWS regions. Solutions architect must recommend a solution that denies access to any operations outside of specifically designated regions. Which solution will meet these requirements? Here in this question, the company wants to deny access to any operations outside of specifically designated regions. Considering this, the solutions architect should launch an AWS control tower landing zone, create OUs, and attach SCPs that deny access to run services outside of the approved regions. Thus, the correct option is C. Question 23. A company's interactive web application uses an Amazon CloudFront distribution to serve images from an Amazon S3 bucket. Occasionally, third party tools ingest corrupted images into the S3 bucket. This image corruption causes a poor user experience in the application layer. The company has successfully implemented and tested Python logic to detect corrupt images. A solutions architect must recommend a solution to integrate the detection logic with minimal latency between the ingestion and serving. Which solution will meet these requirements? Here in this question, we need a solution to integrate the detection logic with minimal latency between the ingestion and serving. Considering this requirement, the correct solution is to use an S3 event notification that invokes an AWS Lambda function. Thus, the correct option is C. The requirement here is to catch and deal with the corruption at the time of ingestion. Hence, the logical place to put the check would be where the ingestion is actually happening, which is when the image is put into the S3 bucket. Amazon S3 can be configured to send an event notification when a new object is created. This event can then trigger a Lambda function that uses the Python logic to check the image for corruption. This way, you are catching and dealing with any issues as soon as the image is ingested. Question 24. An education company is running a web application used by college students around the world. The application runs in an Amazon Elastic Container Service cluster in an auto-scaling group behind an application load balancer. A system administrator detects a weekly spike in the number of failed login attempts which overwhelm the application's authentication service. All the failed login attempts originate from about 500 different IP addresses that change each week. A solutions architect must prevent the failed login attempts from overwhelming the authentication service. Which solution meets these requirements with the most operational efficiency? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to prevent the failed login attempts from overwhelming the authentication service with the most operational efficiency. Considering this, the solutions architect should Create an AWS WAF Web ACL with a rate-based rule and set the rule action to block. Connect the Web ACL to DALB. Thus, the correct option is B. Question 25. Company has built a high performance computing cluster in AWS for a tightly coupled workload that generates a large number of shared files stored in Amazon EFS. The cluster was performing well when the number of Amazon EC2 instances in the cluster was 100. However, when the company increased the cluster size to 1000 EC2 instances, overall performance was well below expectations. Which collection of design choices should a solutions architect make to achieve the maximum performance from the HPC cluster? Here in this question, the company needs to achieve the maximum performance from the HPC cluster. Considering this, the solutions architect should ensure the HPC cluster is launched within a single availability zone. Select EC2 instance types with an elastic fabric adapter enabled and replace Amazon EFS with Amazon FSX for Luster. Thus, the correct options are A, C, and F. A. Ensure the HPC cluster is launched within a single availability zone. This choice ensures that the EC2 instances in the cluster have low network latency and high bandwidth as they are located within the same data center. About option C, select EC2 instance types with an elastic fabric adapter enabled. EFA is a network interface that provides low latency, high bandwidth communication between EC2 instances. By selecting instance type with EFA enabled, the cluster can benefit from improved inter-instance communication. About F, replace Amazon EFS with Amazon FSX for cluster. Amazon FSX for Lustre is a high-performance file system optimized for HPC workloads. By using FSX for Lustre instead of Amazon EFS, the cluster can achieve better performance for the large number of shared files generated by the workload. Question 26. Company provides auction service for artwork and has users across North America and Europe. The company hosts its application in Amazon EC2 instances in the US East 1 region. Artists upload photos of their work as large size, high resolution image files from their mobile phones to a centralized Amazon S3 bucket created in the US East 1 region. The users in Europe are reporting slow performance for their image uploads. How can a solutions architect improve the performance of the image upload process? Here in this question, the solutions architect needs to improve the performance of the image upload process. Considering this, the solutions architect should configure the buckets to use S3 transfer acceleration. Thus, the correct option is C. S3 transfer acceleration utilizes the Amazon CloudFront global network of edge locations to accelerate the transfer of data to and from S3 buckets. By enabling S3 transfer acceleration on the centralized S3 bucket, the users in Europe will experience faster uploads as their data will be routed through the closest CloudFront edge location. Question 27. Solutions Architect is designing an AWS account structure for a company that consists of multiple teams. All the teams will work in the same AWS region. The company needs a VPC that is connected to the on premises network. The company expects less than 50 Mbps of total traffic to and from the on premises network. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Here in this question, the company needs a VPC that is connected to the on premises network and expects less than 50 Mbps of total traffic to and from the on premises network. Considering this, the combination of steps that will meet these requirements most cost effectively is to create an AWS CloudFormation template that provisions a VPC and the required subnets, deploy the template to a shared services account, share the subnets by using AWS Resource Access Manager, and use AWS site to site VPN for connectivity to the on premises network. Thus, the correct options are B and D. Question 28. Company needs to migrate its customer transactions database from on-premises to AWS. The database resides on an Oracle DB instance that runs on a Linux server. According to a new security requirement, the company must rotate the database password each year. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least operational overhead? Here in this question, the company needs to rotate the database password each year with the least operational overhead. Considering this, the solution that will meet these requirements is migrate the database to Amazon RDS for Oracle, store the password in AWS Secrets Manager, turn on automatic rotation, configure a yearly rotation schedule. Thus, the correct option is B. Question 29. Software as a service provider exposes APIs through an application load balancer. The ALB connects to an Amazon Elastic Kubernetes service cluster that is deployed in the US East 1 region. The exposed APIs contain usage of a few non standard REST methods: link, unlink, lock, and unlock. Users outside the United States are reporting long and inconsistent response time for these APIs. A solutions architect needs to resolve this problem with a solution that minimizes operational overhead. Which solution meets these requirements? Here in this question, the users outside the United States are reporting long and inconsistent response times for these APIs. A solutions architect needs to resolve this problem with a solution that minimizes operational overhead. Considering this, the solutions architect should add an accelerator in AWS Global Accelerator. Configure the ALB as the origin. Thus, the correct option is C. AWS Global Accelerator is a service that improves the availability and performance of applications for global users. By adding an accelerator in AWS Global Accelerator and configuring the ALB as the origin, the traffic from users outside the United States will be routed through the Global Accelerator network, which uses the AWS Global Network infrastructure to optimize the delivery of the application traffic. Question 30. Company is designing a new website that hosts static content. The website will give users the ability to upload and download large files. According to company requirements, all data must be encrypted in transit and at rest. A solutions architect is building the solution by using Amazon S3 and Amazon CloudFront. which combination of steps will meet the encryption requirements. Here in this question, according to the company requirements, the data must be encrypted in transit and at rest. The solutions architect is building the solution using Amazon S3 and Amazon CloudFront. Considering this, the combination of steps that will meet the encryption requirements is to turn on S3 server side encryption for the S3 bucket that the web application uses, create a bucket policy that denies any unencrypted operations in the S3 bucket that the web application uses, and configure redirection of HTTP requests to HTTPS requests in CloudFront. Thus, the correct options are A, C, and E. These were all the questions for this video. You can find the complete PDF of this video and our practice questions through the link down in the description. We will be publishing more important questions in the next parts of the series. So please make sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon. Thank you for watching and stay tuned.